Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our English lessons for grade 4 at Almanal International School. Today, we will be discussing the topic sequence. Okay, so sequence, guys, basically means an order of events that happens in a story. Okay, so when we read, we think about what comes first in the story, and then what happens after that, and then finally what happens at the end of the story. So the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story refers to the sequence. It's basically sequence is basically the order of how events in a story takes place. That's what it is. Okay, so if we look if we look at this particular definition of the word sequence, we see sequence is the order of in which events happen in a story. When you read, you think about what comes first, next, and last. Okay. And I just want to show you guys a picture of a sequence. Okay. If we look at this particular example over here, in this picture, we have a sequence of Avengers movies. Okay. So the first movies in the Avengers series were basically Captain America Civil War. That was the first one. The second one was the Guardians of the Galaxy, and Thor, Avengers, Captain Marvel, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Black Panther, Ant-Man and Wasp, and lastly, the Avengers Infinity War Part 2. So these movies are in a sequence. In a sequence, why? Because it is in a certain order. First it was Captain America, and lastly it was the Avengers Infinity War Part 2. Okay, so this is basically what a sequence is. It's basically an order of events in a story from the beginning to the end. As an example of how of a sequence as well, of the movies of Avengers. Okay, the second point we have here regarding sequence is a story's plot has a sequence of main events. So if we want to know what a story's plot is, we first need to understand what a plot is. A plot is basically a sequence of the main events in a story that we read or a movie that we watch. Okay, because anything that has a storyline has to have a story plot. And a story plot is basically a sequence, things, events that is in order, basically, and that is what a plot is. So if you want to know what the story's plot is, or any story or a movie's plot is, it's basically the most important events from the start to the finish. From start to finish, all the important and main parts of the story or the movie we're watching. And I've written the plot of a particular movie, the Avengers Endgame, as an example of a plot. Okay, so remember I said that plot is basically the most important events of a story from start to finish, start, the middle, and at the end of the story. So we're going to look now at this plot of the movie Avengers Endgame. Avengers Endgame picks up after events of Avengers Infinity War, which saw the Avengers divided and defeated. Thanos won the day and used the Infinity Stones to snap away half of the life of all life in the universe. Only the original Avengers, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow, and Hawkeye remained, along with some key allies like War Machine, Ant-Man, Rocket Raccoon, Nebula, and Captain Marvel. So we see here in this particular plot that I wrote here, I'm basically mentioning how the story started. How did Avengers Endgame start? It started after the previous movie, Infinity War. And this was the start of how the Endgame basically started, right? Where the Avengers were divided, they were fighting amongst each other, and Thanos basically took the Infinity Stones and he destroyed half of the universe. And only these guys of the Avengers remained. Then, after that, Each of the survivors, meaning all of those Thanos, Hulk, Captain America, Iron Man, all of the survivors, after Thanos snapped his fingers and destroyed half of the universe, they dealt with the fallout from Thanos' dissemination in different ways. But when an opportunity presented itself to potentially save those who vanished, they all came together and set out to defeat Thanos once and for all. So importantly, at the end of Avengers Endgame, all of the Avengers came together, they sorted out their differences, and they basically defeated Thanos, and the world, the universe were saved. So this example of a plot basically stated how the story started, in-game started with uh, Thanos destroying everyone, half of the universe, and also the Avengers being disunited. And in the beginning of the story, sorry, in the middle of the story, they started working together. The Avengers started working together, and at the end, Thanos basically was defeated by them. And that is a perfect example of a plot. Okay, so just to wrap up today's lesson, guys. Okay, so we discussed what sequence is. Sequence is an order of events from start to finish in a story, and we will see it any story we read or any story we watch, a movie we watch, the beginning of it, the middle of it, and at the end. That's an example of a sequence. Then we discuss what the plot is. A plot is basically a sequence of the most important parts of a story we read, or the most important parts of the story of a movie we're watching. And the last point I want to draw everyone's attention to is sometimes main events are told out of sequence, and an event happened earlier may not be revealed until later. So sometimes when writers write to make their story interesting and keep people in suspense and waiting for crucial information about a story or a movie they're watching, they sometimes disarrange basically the sequence of events. They do not reveal important information until the end, or they start off the story or the movie we're watching with some pertinent information, and then at the end we can only make sense of what was mentioned at the beginning. So that is a classical example of how writers and authors, they use and they play around with the main events of a story. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye bye.